Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to part 7 of a 22-part series of tutorials in Managed Database System using Microsoft Access and SQL. In this presentation, we are going to be looking at how to create a relational database using Microsoft Access. My name is Manager M, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. Whenever you are creating a database, there is what we call the foundation that you have to build before you can be able to say that you have a database. And this foundation entails creating various objects that we use in order to be able to manage data in a database. Or in other words, you cannot call whatever you have been able to create in Microsoft Access a database if it does not contain a number of objects. And therefore, creating a relational database using Microsoft Access entails loading the program, giving your new database a name, and then creating various database objects. And these objects are usually created in the following order. Number one, you create what we call the tables. These are the objects that store raw data in form of rows or records, and this is done by creating an object that we call a table, and we are going to see how we create this table in Microsoft Access. These tables, or the format of the content in these tables, look or resemble an Excel sheet, but with enforced data types and relationships. The second object that you create once you are done with the tables is to create what we call the forms. These are a graphical user interface that we use for data entry or editing data, as well as displaying the content of data in your tables or from your tables, or in other ones, in your database. Through these forms, you can be able to see and even make other changes. And the data that is displayed through these forms can be either the data that is found in the tables or the data that has been generated using queries. They allow you to input data into a tables, just as I've said, and they also allow you to edit or make changes to your data depending with the kind of form that you have created. They are user-friendly screens for entering and editing records. They therefore hide the raw data from the table. In other words, when you have various forms for various tables, you do not need to interact directly with the tables. And this is important because it ensures that you don't do unnecessary changes to your data directly from the tables. And therefore, with the use of forms, you can be able to view the data that you have in your table, and also by using the forms, you are able to control the validation and the navigation of your data. Once you have created your forms that you want to use, for example, to enter data in your database or even to display the data, the third component or object that you create is what we call a query or queries. Now, these are objects that you use to retrieve specific data from your database or even update the data. Example such queries include the select query, action queries. Now, these action queries can be of various types. They can include the update query, the append query, the delete query, the make table query. We are going to learn more about these objects when we shall be creating each specific object separately in the subsequent presentations. The queries are used to ask questions about information that is stored in your database. So in other words, when you are asked a question, for example, somebody asks you to be able to display all the students that have enrolled for a certain course, that is a query. And therefore, your work is simply to ask yourself, which fields and from which tables will my report come from, or will my data come from? From which tables will my data come from, and from which fields? You can even use what we call the SQL language to be able to generate or perform, or in other words, you can be able to use a programming language that we call SQL or the inbuilt SQL that is for the Microsoft Access to be able to manipulate queries, that is to retrieve data and even modify data from your database. So we think of queries just as custom views or mini applications for match changes or mini applications that we use to display specific data of interest. The fourth object is what we call the reports. A report is a formatted presentation of data for printing or export. These reports are generated based on what information that you want to present to somebody. For example, you may be asked by your boss to be able to prepare a report on anyone who owes the institution some balances. When you are asked such a question, you can be able to create a query for the same, and then from that query, you can proceed and generate a report for the same. In other words, reports are used to present specific information that you want to present. The senior management in an institution is not usually interested with the raw data. They're interested with the report. And therefore, the best database object that we use for the purposes of making presentations for various reports that we can present to our bosses or to other people, even those who don't know about Microsoft Access, is reports. And therefore, the reports allow you to print data based on what is contained in your queries or in your tables. Nicely formatted outputs for printing are important. In other words, a report is usually supposed to be very presentable. It is the form, it is the instrument, is the tool that people use to read certain information from a database. They do not need to know about tables. They do not need to know about the queries. They do not need to know about the forms. What they simply need is data that they're interested with, analyzed data that they want to use for a certain purpose. And therefore, you need to format your reports. Ensure that the printouts you make from your database are presentable, they are legible, they are attractive, they can catch someone's attention, they can pass the message that you want, not just based on the content written, but even on the way it is presented. And for that reason, it's always good to ensure that your reports are nicely formatted. They look nice and they're in the format required. If it's a receipt, it is in the format of a receipt. If it's a class list, it is in the format of a class list, etc. We can also be able to create what we call macros. However, macros and modules are advanced objects in database creation, and therefore for the basic users, for the normal users, like students, you may not need to work on macros or modules. But what is a macro? A macro is a database object that we use to automate tasks in the database. When you click on it, it is able to perform certain actions for you. It is able to generate what you want by you not needing to click or choose various options each and every time. So if, for example, you know very well that you'll be always creating a certain report for those who have balances or fees balances, you can create a macro so that whenever such a receipt or whenever such a document for balances is required, you just click once on an icon for the relevant macro, and it is able to generate what you want, including printing. And therefore, macros are database objects that we use to automate those activities that you perform frequently. It reduces the amount of time that you take to create or to generate certain data. And therefore, we are saying, if you know that you are going to be performing a certain activity every time, for example, checking those who have balances, then you can create an object for automating that process, and the best one is macros. We also have what we call modules, Visual Basic, like modules that we find in Visual Basic. And therefore, these objects are the objects that we use when you want to perform advanced database operations, or when you want to perform what we call advanced logic. These modules are, of course, complex, and these ones can be used almost like macros, but they're able to perform more activities than the activities that are performed through a macro. And therefore, some of these can be used to undertake various activities such as transactions, batch jobs, etc. In other words, one module can be able to perform activities that are performed by several macros. Of course, for the sake of presentation or learning this database or our series, we may not really bother with macros and modules. When working on these objects, such as tables, you can make use of the following types of views for database objects. So in other words, when you're manipulating, when you are creating or manipulating or performing any activity using the objects that you have looked at, the tables, the queries, the forms, the reports, and the others, the macros and the modules, you can always do that in the following number of views, but it depends with the activity that you want to carry out in an object. One of the views is what we call the design view. The design view is used to set the data types, insert, perform deletion of fields, and even set the primary keys. In other words, when you are creating an object like a table, it's always good to use the design view because it is through it that we're able to set the various properties for your various fields. You set the field, you set the data type, and you perform other activities, including deleting fields, setting primary keys, and others, as we are going to see in this presentation and in the subsequent presentations. Number two is the datasheet view. Datasheet view is used to enter and view the data for the records. So datasheet view is mostly used to display the content of a table, the content of a query, and even the reports and the others, just displaying the information that is required. So you can be able to switch between these views. You can be able to switch between the datasheet view and the design view by clicking on View arrow on the Home tab, and then you click on either datasheet view or design view, as we are going to see. Now, having said that, and before we proceed or we embark on the specific process of creating our various objects for our database, let us see how the objects that we have talked about look like. So I'm going to display for you, my dear students and the rest of the learners, an example of a database called MLSwap Hotel, which contains various objects that you will be able to see, and then we shall be able to switch between one view and the other for ease of understanding. And then from there, we shall be able to proceed and create a database. So how do we do that? So I'm going to open a database here. This database is MLSwap Hotel. So I'll just open my database by double-clicking on it. Now, as you can see, this is our database here. And our database contains various objects that I would like you to see. One of them is the tables. So these are the tables. We have the queries. We have reports. We have macros here. Of course, my database does not have the modules. So these are our major objects. Now, how do these objects look like? How do these objects look like? Now, let's open at least one of each category for us to see. Now, we have one table here called the customer. So If you right click on it, and then you click on design view, you'll be able to open it in design view. So this is what we are calling design view. As you can see, when you open an object in design view, it gives you the opportunity to be able to make various changes to your object. For example, these are references in my database object called the table. Let me close it. You right click there, you click on close. Let me open another table. And this time round, I'll not open it in design view, but I open it in datasheet view. So to open it in datasheet view, you just right click on it and you click open. So this is the difference between opening the table or object in design view and opening it in design or in datasheet view. However, you can always choose the view from this button here or this icon. If you click here, you can switch between one view and another. If you want to move to design view, you click on design view. If you want to go back to datasheet view, you click on datasheet view. Now, datasheet view, as you can see, it is displaying the object or the content of our object. Now, let me close this object by right-clicking on its name, and then I click on close. Let us open another object in datasheet view. This is the query. So you can just double-click on your query. Once you double-click, it will display the content. So this is datasheet view. I can close this object. I'll close that and open another object here called forms. So you can just double click on it, or you right click on it, you click on open. Now this is a form. As you can see, form is usually supposed to be very presentable, and it can generate certain information, or it is used to display specific information as you need. Then I can close this form and I open another form. For example, let me open this form called hotel main menu in datasheet view. So just click on open. You can see. Now, because I have integrated some modules, what we call the links, in this form, if I want, for example, to open customer bill, I'll just point on option 2 in this menu, and then that is this part, and then I'll just click on it, and it will open for me the customer bill form, as you can see. So I can close this object. We are going to create these objects, my dear students, and the rest of the learners, and therefore you do not need to worry. This is what we shall be doing in the subsequent presentations. The next is a report. So I will open one report here called customers payments. So I'll just right click on it and click open. This is a report. You can see that there's almost some similarity between the report and the form, but now you have to format your form or your report to be as presentable as possible. You can see that this report indicates the amount of money that our various customers have paid. You can see there's a flow record amount spent, amount paid, and the balance. So it is displaying customer balances. It is displaying customer balances. I can close this report. I open another object, for example, the macro, this macro called close customer field open main menu. Customer, that is close customer bill, open main menu. So you can see. So anytime you want to open the main menu for the hotel, for the customer billing, you just need to double click or open the respective macro. So it automates the tasks, just as you have said. And therefore, my dear students and the rest of the learners, those are our main objects that every database must have. The question now is, how do we proceed to create a database that will look like this database that I'm displaying, Emily Swap Hotel. As you can see, a database can have as many objects as possible based on their roles or their purpose. It can have many tables, many queries, many forms, many reports, many macros, depending on the expectations or depending on the tasks being performed by the organization. And with that, my dear students, let's now see how we can proceed, how we proceed to create our database. So we are going to exit from this database, and then we go back to our presentation so that we then can see how we create a database. So this is the procedure for creating a database. Now, in this procedure, we are going just to undertake all the steps that you require to create a database, and I'm also going to create a simple database. But we are going to perform or create various objects or perform various operations one at a time in the subsequent presentations. But through this presentation, you can be able to have a clear picture of how to create a complete database for all the objects or with all the objects that we have already seen. So the following is a summary for the complete process of creating a database in Microsoft Access. Now we are going to call our database that we are going to create just now for demo as a Swap database using Microsoft Access 2016. Now the process of creating a database begins with the first step, which is to launch Microsoft Access. For example, Microsoft Access 2016. Now the purpose of this step is to start a new database project. So the procedure of doing this is you click on or you start Microsoft Access by, for example, clicking on Start button on Windows, then you type Access 2016 in the search box and you press Enter. Then you create a new database. And how do you do that? Once your Microsoft Access loads, it will give you an option to choose or to click on a new database. Then from the startup screen, choose blank database. And then your database will be ready. But you have to give it a name. You have to save it. So you click on the file name box. You type a name for your database, for example, a Mediswap school database. Then it will add the extension .accdb. That is not you who earns. Then you choose a location to save it. By clicking the folder icon to browse. And then once you are set, you click on create and your database will be ready for the purposes of now progressing in building various objects. So let's see how we do that. So we have said you click on Start menu, and then you can type here Access, that is at the search. Once you start typing the name Access, if Access is installed, it will show you, like in my case, I have Access 2016, as you can see. So you just click on the app for Access. Once you have launched Microsoft Access, you can see on this screen, we have various templates from where you can begin. We have blank desktop database. So this is the one you click, blank access database. But if you want to make changes to an existing template, or if you want to make use of another kind of a template, you can choose from these options here. However, because this is for learning purposes, we are going to click on blank desktop database, and this option helps you to be able to design your database as you want. Once I've done that, you can see you have blank desktop database. And then there's a message here. Should I create an Access app or an Access desktop database. So we are creating access database. So you just click here, browse where you want to have your database placed or the folder by clicking on this icon. So let's click on this icon. Then we are going to create our database in a folder that I'm calling Microsoft, or that is Manage Database System using Access. That is my folder. You can even click on any other, but I want to choose that one. And then under file name, give it a name. We are going to call ours MLSwap database. MLSwap database. And then you click on OK. Once you have done that, you can see that under file name, we have the name MLSwap database.accdb. So Microsoft Access will automatically add the extension for you. Once you are set, you are ready, and you can see even the folder where our database will be located is here, just below the name. So once you are set, you click on Create. Good. So that is how we create, or we initiate the process of creating a database. Our database is now ready. So let's see how we proceed to create the other objects. So we continue with our presentation so that you can see how we proceed. So that's step number one. Step number two, you create and design tables. We call them data storage layer. The purpose of this step is to define data structure. Tables are the foundation of a database, and therefore they are the ones in which data is stored. How do we do that? So to create a new table, you go to the Create tab, and then you click on Table. A new table opens in Datasheet view with a default ID, primary key field. Once that is done, you can switch to Design view so that then you can be able to design or create proper structure for your table. And to do that, you click on View, then you select Design View. Then once you have done that, you save your table by giving it a name, for example, students. And then you define your fields by setting the field names. For example, student ID, first name, last name. Then data type, for example, auto number, short text, date or time. Description, you define or you type some text to say or to tell somebody what the field does. And then you set primary key, which we call an ID field, and you save the table. So let's proceed in our database to perform this activity. So this is our database in which we want to create our tables. Already you can see by default, there's a table which has been added here for you, but we can remove this. So I'll click on Close. Then to create a table, you click on Create menu, here, Create, then click on Table. That's what we have said. So a table has already been added with one field. So you proceed to define this table or structure it as you want by adding the required fields and setting other properties. And this is done by clicking on the View menu here, then click Design View. Once you click Design View, you give your table a name. Remember, the name for this table must indicate the type of data the table will have. So I'll just call it student details. Students details. Students details. That way. Then you click on OK. So that is our table in design view. So from here, you can set your various fields as you want. For example, I'll change the ID field, and then I will call it admission number. Then you set its data type. Its data type, in this case, it can be an auto number. Or just choose yours. Like, it can just be number. So let me just call it number. And you can set other properties. You can describe here. For example, I can type the description that this is each student must have a unique identification number, because every customer, every student should have his or her own individual number. So that's a description. You can also set other properties. When you click there, you can set other properties below here. So I can click, for example, data type there. You can see it is number. And then below here, you can set other properties as you want. You can set the format. You can set number of decimal places. If it's something which has decimal places, the input mask, restrict the various types of entry or format to indicate or display the layout for the field as you want. And these others that we are going to set in our subsequent presentations. Next, we can have another field, and we call it a first name. And then data type, we can have it as short text. You can, of course, set other properties, which you are going to learn later. Then I can have last name. It can also be short text. Data type. Remember, we choose your data types here. Your field can be short text, long text, number, data type, currency, etc. All these. It depends with the type of data that your field will have. Now, that is my students' details table. I can save this table that way by clicking on Save button. Then I can close this table and create a second table. To create a second table, you click on Create. But before that, let us go back to this table again. If you realize that there's something you have left out or you have not set, or you realize that you want to add more fields in your table, you can always right-click on that table, then open it in design view, then you can add other fields that you want. Now, for every table, you must have what we call a primary key. We are going to learn more about primary keys later. So how do you set the primary key? You right-click on that field, the field you want to make a primary key, and then you click on the primary key. If it was already set as primary key, the primary key or the symbol for the key will be removed. Look at what is going to happen. I want to right-click on it again. I click primary key. You can see there is a symbol that has been added here. That indicates that that is the field which has been made a primary key. Note, every table must have a primary key, because it is through this that we are able to create or link this table with other tables. It is every data that is within a table is supposed to have a key that is associated with that field or those fields. So every table has a primary key. We shall learn more about primary keys later, but you cannot have a table that does not have a primary key. So we have made a dimension number our primary key. So we click on Save. Let us close now this table. We close this table by clicking on its name up here. Then we click on Close. If you are asked whether you want to save the changes, click yes. Now, let us create our second table. You click on create, then click on table, or just go directly to table design. So let me just click table design directly. Now, our second table, I will call it payments. So let me call it the payments. Now, you don't give or type the name of the table where I have typed it. What you type here are the fields. So in your mind, you know your table is going to be called payments. So you set the fields for that table. So the name of the table should tell what the table contains. So let's first of all have at least one field here. Now this field or this table can still have admission number. It can still have admission number because each student will be making a specific payment. So you can have it as admission number. Now ensure if this field is being repeated in more than one table several times, ensure that the content, the data type remains the same. So we have to choose our data type here. However, it's always going to avoid duplication or repetition of data. And therefore, for us to have a good primary key for this table for payments, we can just call it payments ID. So let's have our primary key as payment ID. And then this one, we can choose auto number. Let's choose auto number. Let it be generated automatically. You can set other properties at the bottom here. If you want to call it a number, well and good. But let me just call it payment ID. Let this be auto-generated. Then we can have another field here, which we can call amount paid. Amount paid. And then here, because this is money, we choose data type, currency. Then you can specify the format of your currency. We are going to see how we do that in our subsequent presentations. So I have payment ID, I have amount paid. Now we can save this table, click on save button there. Then we can type its name as payments table. We click on OK. You can see there is something we have not yet done. Remember, I've said every table must have a primary key. So you are being told there is no primary key defined. So we are being asked whether we want to continue without the key or not. So we can click on cancel there. We set our payment ID as the primary key. So you right click on that field, then click on primary key. From there, you can click on save. We make use of the same name, payments, and we click on OK. Good. Let us create our third table. Our third table, let's have just 3 tables. So let's create another table. And this table, we can save it. Let us call it the fees table. Or let's have the name program fees. Or let's just call it fees table, fees. We click on OK. Now you can see we are being told there are no fields in this table. So you cannot save a table that does not have a field. So we have to create a field first. So the first field here, the first field that we are going to have here, we can call this one, and the field name for payments, you can call it fee ID, fees ID. Now fees ID, we can make it auto number. Then here we can have a cost, program cost. And then we choose data type currency, program cost. Then we can save this table, type the name of the table, and if it is proposed for you and you are comfortable, it's okay. You click OK. Now look, just as I've said, you must create a primary key. You must create a primary key. It is important. So a table must have a primary key for you to be able to link the tables together later by creating a relationship. So do you want to create a primary key now? You click on yes. So you can see it has set for me the fees ID as the primary key, but you can also change it if you want. Then you click on save. So if we close all, I want you to look at these tables. We have the students table. So student details. We have payments table. We have fees table. Now the question is there a field which resembles another one for the purposes of linking? So there's something we need to do. We need to ensure that at least we have a field that shows, for example, the program that the student has registered for. So you can see in this table, I want to show you something here. We have, let me close all first, click yes. So in students details table, that table, we have admission number, we have first name, we have last name. That's details only. What about in the payments? In the payments table, we have payment ID and amount paid. The question is, who has paid this amount? Who has paid this amount? And therefore, it's always good to include a field to show who has paid. So we can add an admission number in the payments table. So you right click on the payments table, click on the side view, and then we can add another field here. So I want to insert rows because I want to add a field at the middle here, and then I'll call it admission number. Admission number. And then you ensure this admission number is similar. The properties are the same as those which we have already set in the other table. Why have I added this field? It is because it's important for this table to indicate the admission number for the student who has paid. You cannot just make payment without an owner. So that's why we have added that field. So the table called the fees table, payments table, and the student details table contains some fields. Now, the next thing, we can also do something for fees here. The question is, this fee is for which program? Is for which course? So we need also to add another field here. So we can open it in the side view. And then we have, because we have program costs, we can add another field. So I can click here, then right click, click insert row. Or you can delete it if it's at the wrong place. Right click there, click delete row. So we can click on this field, we right click on it, we click insert rows. Now here I can add, or I can type for fees, I can write program and name. Or let me call it program ID for the program. And then that one I can call it auto number. You can have it as auto number. Then we can also add another field here, like program name, so that we know the cost we are talking about. We can undo that. Right click here, click on insert row. So I can have program name field, and then short text, the name of the program. So you can see the fields I've added for the fees table is fees ID, to identify the amount of money or the ID, the primary key for this table. We have the program ID, the program name, and the program cost. So you save that. You can see, use the number data type for similar, use number data type for similar fields. So which field? So program ID, we have another program ID. So we can change this to number. Program ID. Let's see which other table has program ID. None. So we have program ID. So we can save this table. Then these payments, the amount paid is for which program? So we can now add another program or another field called program. Do we need program ID here for the fees? No, we don't need it. It can remain that way. What about student details? Here, we can add the name of the program that the student has and load in. That is at the student details field. So we can open the student details table inside the view, and then we can add here program ID. And then we choose number. So if you look, the table for students now contains a field called program ID to indicate the program that the student has registered for, the ID for the program. If you click on payments table, you see there is payment ID, admission number, amount paid. If you go to fees, you will see there's fees ID. Now look here, this is payment ID. Fees, we have fees ID. Student details, we have admission number, we have program ID. So the question is program ID in the fees table? Program ID, yes. Now, what about in payments? We have payment ID, amount, that's admission number, amount paid. So the question is, which other table contains payment ID? Let's see. So this one is supposed to be payment ID. So you can see this is payment ID for payments. So we can amend this. We are going to learn later why we change that. So here we can have payment ID because the student has paid. Now the payment ID depends on the program. So look here, we have payment ID, amount, that's admission number, amount paid. On the fees, we have program cost, program name, program ID. Then on student details table, we have payments ID. So we have admission number, first name, last name, payment ID. In payments, we have payment ID, admission number, amount paid. So you can see in students details table, we have payment ID. In payments table, we have payment ID. In fees table, we have fees ID, program ID, program name, program cost. The question is there any field here that is related to another table or that is similar to another table? So let's see, fees ID, program ID. None here, none here. So where we can have program ID, where in which table for payment, the student is paying for what? So we can have program ID here. So we can add program ID field here. We are going to learn more about that later. So I can have program ID. Then this one can be, now you have to ensure the data type is the same. Program ID is number. So program ID should be number. So we can say now our table start here, and we can now proceed. Once you have created your tables, you can close all, then save. Once you have done that, you have created your tables. So that is a very important step. As you have seen, I have taken quite some time to demonstrate how to do that. We have set primary keys, we have decided, we have done all that. So what next? What next now is to create what we call relationships. So you have to connect the tables so that they become one entity. In other words, so that it can then be called a database. Once you have created the tables, if you don't relate them, that is not a database. So you have to create what we call relationships. How do we do that? The purpose of this step is to link related data. To enable data integrity and join data across tables, you do the following. You click on Database Tools tab and select Relationships. Then you add all the tables that are in your database into it by clicking on Show Table, then you click on Add. You drag the primary key from one table to the foreign key in another. That is, the fields that look similar or they have similar names, as we are going to see. Then you click on Enforce Referential Integrity, and then you click on Create. Once you are done with creating your relationships, you click on Close and you save the relationships window. So how do we do that? We do that as follows. So let's go back to our database that we have created. This is our database. So you click on Database Tools, and then you click on Relationships. There we go. Then this dialog box or this window will appear. It didn't show table. Here, you choose the tables that you have in your database, which you have to relate. You click on each, you click on Add. So I'll click on Students table, then click Add. You can see it has been added on Relationships window. Then click on Fees table, click Add. Then click on Payments table, and you click Add. As you can see, and you don't add it twice. Then once you are done, you click on Close. So if you find you have repeated a table twice, you can delete one. For example, this one here, you can right click on it and not delete, but you can hide it. You can remove it. So you just hide that table from there. So these are our tables. Now, relationship is the next step that you need to carry out. So how do we relate our fields or our tables here? So this table, it has the following fields: admission number, first name, last name, payment ID. So I can drag payment ID to payment ID here. So I can do that. Then I click on Enforce Referential Integrity and then click on Create. Why have I done that? It is because payment ID is the same. So in payments table, payment ID is our primary key. In our students details table, payment ID is not primary key, but it is what we call foreign key. We are going to learn more about that later. So we have related the two tables. Next, there's this table called fees ID here. And of course, we could also relate payments with admission number. So I can even delete this relationship by right-clicking on the link, and then I click on yes. And then I can still relate this admission number to admission number in payments table. I click on Enforce Referential Integrity, then Create. Now, I have changed my relationship connection. Now, admission number is primary key in students details table, but it is a foreign key in payments table. It's called foreign because it is not a primary key in this table. Then we have the fees table and we have the payments table. So which field is the same here? Either between fees and students or payments. So we have fees ID. Fees ID is not anywhere else. Program ID, yes, it is here and it is here. We have program name, we have program cost. So we can relate, we can connect the program ID to program ID here. So we can link them that way. We click enforce referential integrity and click on create. Now we are being told no unique index found for the reference field of the primary table. So that tells you that it's not every field that you can link. It's not every field that you can link. So the question is, which is the best field now for us to be able, for example, to link payments to the fees? So what we are going to do here, instead of having program ID here, we can change this program ID and we call it payment ID. We can call it payment ID, or because the fees table and the payments table are related, we have fees table and this one are related, then we can add a fees ID on payments table. So what we do, we just go back to our tables. We can close that. Let's save that relationship first. And then we can come to payments table. We click on the side view. And then now we can add the fees ID here. Fees ID, so that we relate the two together. Let's make it auto number, fees ID. Now we can remove if you want, you can remove program ID. Why do we have it in the fees table? Yes, it is in the fees table. No, it's not there. Yeah, it is there, program ID. So because we have fees ID, we can remove the program ID from the let's see. So let's save the table first. Then fees ID is supposed to be a number. So let's change that to number. We save, and then we can remove the program ID because we have the fees ID. You can just remove this field. You delete that row. If you click yes, you delete the field. So we can save that. So let's go back now to our relationships. So we close all. We click yes to save the changes. Go to database, then relationships. Now, you can see we have this field now, fees ID, and this one. So we can drag this fees ID to this other field here. We click on enforce referential integrity and click on create. So you can see students details table is related to payments table, and payments table is related to fees table. Through which field? Fees ID, fees ID. We have admission number, admission number. And we could even have, if you wanted, we could even have the payment ID under the fees. But we could also relate the payments ID from the payments with payment ID here. Let's see how that would be. So if I delete this, delete, click on yes, and then I relate this payments ID, payment ID to payment ID, I click on enforce referential integrity and click on create. So it depends with how you want your tables to be related, which field becomes primary key, which one becomes foreign key. So you save these relationships and click on close. So that's the next step when you are creating a database. Now, once you have done that, the next step is to enter data into your tables. The purpose of this step is to populate the database. Now populate your tables with the sample records. So you double-click a table in the navigation pane. Then you type data directly into a datasheet view, like a spreadsheet. Then you press Tab or Enter to move between fields, and you save your data. And you do this per each table. So let's add data into our tables. So double-click on fees ID. So we can add, let's skip that first. We have program ID, for example, 1. Then program name, I can call it, let me just call it ICT. Program cost, we can type 20,000. The fees ID, it can remain as 1. Let's add another one. Those are automatic. So I can have another program ID like OS. The ID here, I can call it 2, no problem. The amount here, I can type 10,000. This is called populating data. So we can have our 2 program IDs, we can have our data that way. You have seen the way I've done it. Once you add the data in the last record, automatically Access generates that record. So let's go to payments table. In the payments table, let's the payment ID remain. Then admission number, you can type admission number like admission number 122. Amount paid, let's have, for example, let's have 5,000. A fees ID, it can be a fees ID, let it be 1. Then we can have another admission number, 130. Amount paid, maybe 10,000. Fees, now you can see, you cannot add or change a record because a latent record is required. So we click on OK. So we can delete that for now. You cannot add or change a record because a related record is required in table called the fees. So let's see the table called the fees. So let's call this 2. Ensure the fields are the same. So if I click on the fees table, those fields that are similar must have similar data. You can see fees ID is 1, 2. So payments table, fees ID is 0, 1, 2. So it has to be consistent. What about amount paid? So amount paid, we can enter, for example, 10,000 that way, there. So the fields that are similar in one table must be, the content must be the same in another table. So we have entered our data for fees, payments. Let's open the student details table and enter admission number, for example, 1, 1. Now you can see this field is being repeated. So at the end of the day, there was no need of entering admission number again in another table. So we are going to, we have to remember what we call normalization. So I want to call this student Anne. Then you can see you cannot add or change a record because a latent record is there. So what does that mean? If we go to admission number, let's see in the payments table, admission number is 122. This is 130. So what we are supposed to do here in fees, that is in the payments table, you see we have admission number in payments table. And we have a payment ID. We have payment ID in the students table. So what we need to do is we need to remove 1. we need to remove one field here so that we don't repeat admission number every time. So for payments, we are going to remove, we can delete this field called admission number to avoid repetition. So you can click OK. So let's do a slight change here. Under payments, we can open it in design view, and then we can remove the admission number from here because the payment ID is already there. So we can delete this. We can delete, let's choose something first, and then we can delete this row completely so that we avoid duplication. We are avoiding duplication. So let's see, in payments, in fees table, we have that. We have program ID, we have the amount they paid. In payments table, so we save that. In payments table, we have payment ID, amount they paid, fees ID. Then in students table, we have the admission number. For example, now this is where admission number is, so we can have 122 and Wangui. Payment ID, we can have it as 1. We can have another person, admission number 130, name is Julius. Then Julius Kamau. Now let's look at our payment ID, these 2. So this is how we populate our data. So we have the fees table. It has fees ID, program ID. And the others, we have payments table. We have students table. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, that is how we populate our data into our tables. So once you are done, you can close all. Let's look at our relationships window again. We see how it looks like. So that's our relationships window. That is how our tables are related. So students table is related with payments table through payment ID. Payments table is related to fees table through fees ID. Now we can close that. So which is the next step in database creation? So the next step in database creation is step number 5, where now you are able to create queries. Now, what is a query? A query is an object which is used to generate or retrieve data from our database and even do some analysis. The purpose of this step is to retrieve and analyze data. Queries are used to extract and process data from tables. So there are a number of ways of doing that. You can either use query wizard or you use design view. If you want to use the query wizard, you click on the create tab, click on the query wizard. Then you choose simple query wizard. You select the tables or fields that you want to include. And then you choose detail, that it shows all the records or summary, that is aggregate data. Then you name your query and you click on finish. You can also use what we call the design view, where when you want to set certain criteria, like you want to sort or you want to do some calculations, you want to generate what we call a calculated field. So in this case, you click on go to create, or in other ones, you go to create, or you click on the create button, choose query design. Then add the tables that you need and the fields that you require for your query. In the criteria row, specify the condition. For example, department equals to ICT, etc. You click on run. That is the red exclamation mark to execute the query. You save the query and you are done. Your query will be ready. So let's create a query, at least one query or 2 queries from our database that we have created. So we are going to begin by creating a query. This query will display the students and the amount of fees they are paid. So this query is to display the fees the students have paid. So to create that query, you click on create. Then you can click on query wizard. So use query wizard. Now, which type of query do you want to create? Is it simple select query? Is it cross tab? Is it duplicate? Is it unmatched? We are going to learn about this later, but for now, let's choose simple query wizard. Then you click OK. Now, my query is for displaying the amount of fees the students have paid, the fees they have paid. So it means we need to display the students first and then the fees paid. So we choose the table that contains the fields that contains what we want. So the first table, so to choose the table from where to select your fields from, you select it from here. So I'll click student details table. Once you've done that, the fields that are there will be displayed here. So you select the fields you want, you click on this arrow, on this button to add it on your query. So we need admission number, we shall need first name, we shall need last name. Those are enough for us. And then you will go to the next table. The next table is for the payment. So I'll click where? Let's see which table contains amount paid. It is the payments table. So you click on amount paid, you add. So my query will simply generate the student and the amount paid. The student and the amount paid. So I can click on next. Would you like a detail or summary query? So I'll choose detail because it shows every field of every record. Then you click on next. Then give your query a name. So this one is for displaying the amount paid. So I'll call it payments query. Payments query. Then you can click on open the query to view information, and then you click on finish. You can see we are being told there is already a query or a table named payment, so we have to change the name. The name of the query should not be the same as the name of a table. So sometimes we advise that you add QRY at the beginning, QRY payments. So I can click on finish. So you can see, my dear students, the rest of the learners, now this query is displaying the admission number of the student, his or her two names, and the amount he or she has paid. The amount of money paid is found in the payments table, as you can see. So this query has been able to make use of fields from two tables, the student details table and the payments table. Let us create another query. So we can create another query, this time now in design view. So I'll close this query first. So we can create a second query, click on create, and then this time is query design. Now we want to create a query that will display the fee balances for our students. So we need the student name. We are going to require a field in the payments and the one in fees table. So let's click on student details table. We add it. So in design view, you must add the tables that you are going to be using or from which the fields will be coming from. Once you are done, you click on close. So in design view, you choose the fields of interest. So we want to create a query that will display students' balances. So you have to add and drop or drag a field and drop it in the grid that you need. You organize your fields in this sheet view or in this grid view based on the order that you want them to appear in your query. So we have that. You can also click on a cell like this and you choose from there the field you want. So I need first name. So first name will come from the student details. So let me pick first name. And let me add another field, which is student's last name. From there, I want to choose the field for fees that is supposed to indicate the amount paid. So I want to go to fees, not the amount paid, but the program cost. So I'll choose program cost. You can just double click and it will appear, it will be added. Then from there, amount paid. So you can double click that way and it is added. So we have added our fields there. If I run this query, let's see what this query will generate. So to run the query, you click on this button here called Run. You can see it is displayed the student first name, admission number, first name, last name, program cost, amount paid, but it is not indicating the balance. So we need to compute the balance. So we add another field. So let's go back again. So let's save this query first. So let's call it balances query. So we can just call it QRY balances. QRY to indicate the query. We click OK. So I can close this query. Then I open it in design view so that I'm able to modify it that way. Now we want to add another field. This time around, a field for computing the balances. So what you do, that is called a calculated query. So what you do here, you type the name of the field. So I'm creating a field called balances. You put a column that way, put square bracket, then the balance will be program cost minus amount paid. So you type the field, the first field that contains your data. Remember, you can always adjust the grid so that your field name fits. So program cost minus, you put under square bracket, amount paid. Amount paid. Why am I typing that? It is because the balance is the amount student has paid being subtracted from the total amount of the cost of the program the students has taken. So you write it as calculated field. So this is how you write it. Balance, then colon, program cost, the name of the first field, minus the name of the second field. Let us save this and then we run it and see what will happen. Good. So you can see we have added another field in this query. It is called a balance. You can see, let's see that is correct. Program cost the student has taken is 20,000 shillings cost. Amount he or she has paid is 5. So balance is 15. Correct. The second student, Julius, has paid the program cost is 10,000. He has paid 10,000. Balance is 0. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, you then click on save. So this is how we create queries. For more details about each of these objects or steps we are taking, we are going to learn in the subsequent presentations where we are going to take time and see how we perform each of these operations that I'm performing in this database. So this demonstration, this presentation is summarizing, is a summary of all the steps that we take when you're creating a database. So the next step is step number 6. Now, instead of creating or entering them directly into the tables, you can use forms, or you can use forms to display the content of the database or what is in the tables. So we can use forms also to do data entry. Now, the purpose of this step is to simplify data entry. Forms provide a user-friendly way to view, enter, and edit data. So the two main ways of creating forms are quick form creation, where we select a table or a query in the navigation pane. Then we go to create. We select the form. Then Access generates a simple form automatically. The other way is by creating a form through design view, where you go to create form design, and then you add controls, text boxes, count boxes, labels from the design view or design tab. Then you set control source to link each control to a field. Then you save the form. Now, the creating of form in design view, we are going to learn it later in the next presentation. So for this time, let us create at least 1 or 2 forms for our database using the design view. So you click on the table that you want. For example, if I want the payments table, Remember, a form can come from a table or a query. So I can click on student details table. Then I click on create. Then I can just click on form. So just click on form. You can see the form has been generated automatically for the table I have selected. So you can be able to scroll or see each of the records by clicking on the button below here. So you can see we have already generated the form called student detail. So you click on save, and then you give your form a name. It's always good to begin with FRM. Now this is student detail. So this table is simply displaying students details. So students, FRM, students. You click OK. So we can close this form, and now we create another form, but now for a query. So you can click on create. I want us to use wizard now. Create, then check if you see an option for creating a form using wizard. Do you see form wizard? Now, for now, you can see your form design, you have application parts there, but you have this form wizard here, form wizard. So you can click on form wizard, and then you choose the table or query that contains the data you want to display in your wizard, in your form. So let me have the one which is displaying the balances. So I will choose query. And then I will add all the fields. So you click on this button for all. Then you click on next. Choose the layout for your form. So I will choose a tabular, there is columnar. So let me choose a tabular, and I click next. Then give it a name. So I will call it FRM for form balances. Then I can click on finish. So you can always adjust. You can always adjust. If you find that the field is not able to display all the data, you right click on that form this way, then open it in design view so that you are able to adjust or increase the size of that field or that button in which the balance is supposed to be displayed. So you can adjust the label, or you can organize it in any other way. You can make any change that you want in design view that way. So you can also adjust it the way you want. So then you click on save. You close this, close all. Let's open our form again, FRM balances. You can now see my amount is displayed. Now we are going to see how we can format our forms later. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, that's how we create a forms. Always remember to click on save, and then you close all. Now, once you are done with the forms, you can also proceed and create what we call a report. This is simply for data presentation. The purpose of this step is to present and summarize data. Reports format and present data for printing or sharing. You can create a report in the same way we have created the form, either using report wizard or by using the design view. So to create using wizard, you go to create, then you click on report wizard. You choose the table or query you want to report on, that is based on the data you want to display. You select the fields from that table or query, then you can categorize the data the way you want. You can even sort it the way you want. Then you select the layout and orientation, either portrait or landscape, based on the amount of data you want to display or you want to print on a single sheet. and then you name the report and you click on finish. So you can customize that report in the same way we have customized our form by opening it in design view or layout view to adjust formatting, headers, colors, and logos. So let's create a report. Just some reports from one database. So to create a report, we are saying you click on create, and then now you can choose report wizard. So let's see. There is this report. If you want a report to be generated automatically, like if the report I want to generate is to display the balances, I can just click on the query for balances because it's the one which has all the fields that I'm looking for, and then you just click on report. You can see that is our report. It is on displaying our data, the balances. And one of the things you can see very well, my dear students, that the rest of the learners is that it is displaying the date and the time when the report has been generated. So you can save that report. And how do you save it? Just save it all. And what we are calling an acronym for it, RPT. So report balances. You click on save. That's one of the fastest ways. Of course, you can change the colors and etc., which you are going to do later in my subsequent presentations. So that's the first report, and you can see it has been added to the reports. Let us create another report now by ourselves. I'll still use a report wizard. So I'll click on create. This time around, I'll click on a report wizard. This one here. So you click on report wizard. This time around, I want to create a report that indicates the student names, the program they have chosen, the amount they have paid, and the balance that they owe. So what will I do? I'll click on the query because the query contains all my fields. It contains all my fields, or let me first of all choose the student details table. I choose admission number. I choose first name. I choose last name. Then I will go to programs. So I'll go to, let me go to the payment fees table. So that I choose program name there. I don't need to display the program cost. Then I'll go to the query, which you create the balances. So then I'll choose amount paid, and I can choose a balance. You can see how I've selected them. Then I'll click next. You have chosen fields from record sources which the wizard can't connect. You may have chosen fields from a table and from a query based on that table. If so, try choosing fields from only the table or only the query. Good. So you can click back. So we can choose the one for the query. So query balances. Or first of all, we can choose all the fields for query balances. So push all of them because this query contains all the details of the student. We have first name, last name, program cost, amount paid, balance, but we don't have the name of the course. So we can just add, you can click on a payments table, then not payments. We want to choose the one which has the name of the course. So you can go to the fees table, then we choose a program name, just that. Then we click on next. Now you can still see we are being told you have chosen fields from record sources which the wizard can't connect. You may have chosen fields from a table and from a query based on that table. If so, try choosing fields from only the table. Now let's change that. This information is very key for you, my dear students, so that you can see how we choose our fields. Already we have a report or a query showing the reports. So for the balances, So I don't need to create another one for balances. Let me just display the students that I have and the programs they have chosen or the programs that they are undertaking. So I'll choose student details table. I pick admission number, first name, last name. Then I can go to second table. The second table is fees. I can choose the program name, program cost. And then I can go to the payments table. Then I can just choose amount paid. I have this time chosen all my fields from the tables without mixing them. Because if you mix fields from a table and fields from a query at the same time, one may give you a challenge, but we're going to learn more later. Then you click next. How do you want to view your data? We can view it according to the payment. That's according to the payments. So you can click next. Then, do you want to add any grouping? No, we don't need any grouping there. Click next. Then, do you want to sort them in ascending or descending order? Choose the criteria. So I want to choose them according to admission number. Ascending, you click. Or if it is descending, you click. So let it be ascending. You click next. Do you want it in portrait or landscape? Block, layout, outline layout, or stepped. So let me choose stepped and I choose landscape. Then click next. Give your report a name. So this report can be called payment. So RPE payments. You click on finish. So that is our report. Now you can see the way the flows are looking like they are not well arranged. We have the program ID, program cost, amount paid, admission number, first name, last name. So you can always rearrange them the way you want. So how do you rearrange them? How do you rearrange them? You rearrange them by right-clicking on that form, then design view. Once you are here, you can always rearrange them the way you want. For example, I can choose these fields. We are going to learn more about these ones later. I can choose all those. Then I can move them like that. You just click like that. And then you can adjust them for once that way. Then pick these ones. You can pick these ones this way. Move them that way. Then you can move back. This is now in design view. You can push these ones back to where they were. This is called simple rearrangement. And then we can have them there. Let's save. And then we double click it and see how our fields look like. You can see I have rearranged them. I have admission number, first name, last name, program cost, amount paid. And if you want to make further changes in it, you just right click on it, click design view, and then change even the color. For example, for the report, you can right click on it. If you right click and you see it's not displaying for you, you can always click on format there, choose even the color that you want. For example, that you can even make it broad, you can change text, you can change everything for all of them. Even the headings here. If you want to change the headings, you can always select them, then maybe choose the font type you want, the font color, etc. You can even make it broad. You can even change the color of the form. So you can right click on any part of your report, and then choose anything like that. If you wanted to format the heading, you can change any other part. We are going to learn more about this later in my subsequent presentations. Then you save. You can close this, close all, then open that form in design view. You can see now, not in design view now, but in the sheet view, just view it directly, the report. So you can see how my report looks like. We are going to learn more on how we format them later. So you can close that. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, that's how we create the reports. Lastly, you can print database objects, tables or queries or forms or reports as needed. Now, the purpose of this step is usually to share and archive results. So how do you print reports? You just click on print a report. You open the report you want to print, go to File, click on the File, click on the Print, see the preview, and just set things as you want, the orientation, the margins, the paper size, etc. Then you click on the Print. You can even print other objects like tables or queries, but we advise you to print reports. You open the object you want, click on File, click on Print, click Print Preview, and click on Print. You also do the same for forms. You also do the same for reports. It's always advisable that you print reports. Now, let's see how we do that. So if you want to print, for example, balances, that is report for balances, you open the report that way, then you click on the file menu, then click on the print. Then here you click on print preview to see how the printed document will look like. If you see it's not looking properly, if you see it is not well formatted, because there's some data which is not displayed, you open it in design view, and then you can set it properly. You can always click on margins. You set the margins as you want. You change the layout. You can also, that you change the size, or you can even change the layout. For example, now you can see some data is not displayed. So I can click on landscape. And then you see how it will look like. So you can see now all the flows are fitting. Once you are comfortable with that, you just proceed and click on this button for print. So let's click on print. For now, my computer is not connected to any printer, but I can print it to PDF. So I can click print to PDF. Then I can click on OK. And then you can save your report, your printout. Now that we are not printing directly, so I can click there. Then I can type the name of my PDF as a report for balances. So balances report. Then I can click OK. I'm being told that the margins are not okay. So, or they might have issues. I have no issue with that because I'm not connected to a printer. This is simply for demonstration. So let's see how our report is looking like. So this is our report. You can see. If we are the printer, this is exactly what we would see through the printer. So that's our report. And you can always format it as you want. So you click on close. So that's how you print. You can print to a PDF or you print to a printer. Now, if you want to print other objects, like you want to print tables, just open tables, then click on the file, click on the print. Click on the print, and then if you have a printer, you select it from there. Like you can see my name of the printer is here, but it's not connected for now, and it's not allowed. And of course, you cannot see how it will do it. So you just select the printer, make the settings as you want, choose the number of copies that you want, the number of pages you want to print or all of them, and then you just click OK. Of course, if the printer is connected, it will just print out the data, or it will make the printout. The printout will just be produced through your printer. And with that, my dear students and the rest of the learners, we have learned how to make printouts. Lastly, once you are done, everything is now okay, you can always maintain your database and perform any final checks. Now, the purpose of this step is to ensure that the system is accurate, reliable, efficient, and effective. Some of these tasks include, you can compact your database, you can repair the database if it has issues. And this is done by clicking on database tools, and then you click on compact and repair. You can also do backup for your database so that you don't lose your data. To back up your database, you click on File, then Save As, then Backup Database. You can also test your database by entering sample data, running queries, and printing reports. Now let's just see what we are saying. So let's go to our database here, so that at least you have a look at our view. Let me click on Close All. Now you click on Database Tools, then if you want to perform compact and repair, you click on this button here. You can always perform other activities like analyze the performance of a database, analyze performance of, or analyze a table, etc. If you want to back up, you can always click on the file there, just as you have said. You can also, by the way, you can even do compact and repair from here. And you can also do the backup if that option is available in your computer. So to do the backup, you just need to choose the backup option. Note, we have other things you can also do. We have like the external data, you can import, you can export. You can click on the home here, choose anything that you want. You can encrypt your database and perform other activities. You can even save it, click on File Save As. Once you click on File Save As, you can always click on Backup Database. So just click on Save As, and it will take you through the steps or the process. Like if I click there for backup, you see I'll be given an option to give my file name. For example, I can click on desktop, and then I can click on save. Then could not use that folder because it could not create a file called that because it's already, in other words, you cannot create a backup for a database when it is open. So it's always going to close every item in it, close all the tables. Not the database is open, but objects are open. So you just close them, then you click on File menu, and then you click on Save As, then you click on Save As, and then you can choose, for example, manage database using Access, MLSwap, maybe in database, then you can click on Save, and then you check the information are given. Would not use this storage place using Access or MLSwap database in it because the file is already in use. So what that tells you is that for you to be able to do the backup, you are supposed to close the database first. Now, creating a backup, you can even do it by making a copy. So you just close Access completely, and then you can always open the folder which contains your database. Like mine is MLSwap school database, which we have already worked on. That is MLSwap database. Where have we created it from? You have to go to where it is. Once you go to where it is, you can always right-click on it. You can always right-click on it. Let's see whether we have ours somewhere. If you don't see it, you can always open here it is. You can see where it is. So it is in Manage Database System using Access. So Manage Database using Access. So we click there. Then the name of our database is MLSwap database. Here it is. So you can just right click on it and then you click on copy. You can always click on copy and you save a copy of the same database. So those are always options that are available. We shall learn more on what we do in our subsequent presentations. And with that, my dear students and the rest of the learners, we have come to the end of this presentation on how you create a database. And we have learned all the steps and the procedures that you're supposed to follow and all what you're supposed to do by every step. We shall learn more about how we create each of the aspects of the database we have looked into in our subsequent presentations. We can now continue to part 8 of 22, where we are now going to look at how we create tables in the side view. We have already learned how to create tables, but now we are going to pay more attention and in-depth details will be looked at when we are creating the table. So from this part of the series to the other series, subsequent presentations, we shall dive in depth on how we do each of the activities that we have already seen me do in this presentation. Congratulations for learning part 7 of 22 on procedures for creating a relational database using Microsoft Access. You can access the rest of the parts in the series as well as other computer or ICT videos by clicking or tapping on MLSwap ICT YouTube channel below this video. To subscribe to the channel, tap on subscribe button below this video in YouTube if it's not currently reading as subscribed. You can also join this channel, MLSwap ICT YouTube channel, by subscribing using the mode for joining, where you join as a special member, where you are able to do some further interactions, one-on-one tutorials, etc. with the creator. And for you to be able to do that, you click on join button and follow the prompts that will be displayed. For any further correspondence, kindly write it to us through the email mlswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me, and may God bless.